Built on the 35 years of worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Massive human trafficking. It's a record 288 people arrested.
They're not reporting the real numbers.
The numbers are segmented and they are fictitious.
I started my career in 1997 in the United States Border Patrol. It was one of the most violent times in recent Border Patrol history. I made my bones and my reputation on that border. I believe what is happening on the border today is intentional.
We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them.
Our own government is facilitating the absolute destruction of the American immigration system, and I can prove it point by point. I'm unafraid to speak the truth. This is just data-driven and experience-driven.
We've got 5 minutes. If you would, please make sure your green light is on, and then state your name and title for the record. Thank you.
It is on. My name is Publius Hulda. I'm a retired litigation attorney, and I write on the original intent of the Constitution using the Federalist Papers. I do not go by Supreme Court opinions because for 200 years the Supreme Court has been ignoring the Federalist Papers and the Constitution our framers given, and they have gone off on tangents of their own which have nothing to do with the Constitution. The Attorney General's opinion begs the question. He states that states can't nullify acts of the federal government which are authorized by the Constitution, but then he completely fails to cite article, section, and verse, a clause, where the Constitution delegates to Congress authority to restrict our arms. When we ratified the Constitution, we created the federal government. We listed, enumerated every power we granted to our creature, the federal government. Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 through 16 lists most of the powers we delegated to Congress for the government, for the country at large. We didn't put on our list that our creature could restrict our arms. We didn't delegate this power to Congress because our framers wanted the American people to be heavily armed. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison write about this in the Federalist Papers. In Federalist Paper number 46, James Madison writes, why the American people are armed. It is so we can defend ourselves, our communities, and our states from the federal government in the event it becomes tyrannical and oversteps the constitutional limits on its powers. In Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16, pursuant to that, Congress passed the Militia Act of 1792, where they required every able-bodied male citizen between the ages of 18 and 46, except for federal officers and employees, to buy a rifle, ammunition, and report to their local militia for training. Pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, Congress is authorized to issue letters of marque and reprisal. This is what authorizes private warships to make war on our enemies. These were the privateers who fired on British ships during the War of 1812. Our framers contemplated a people who were heavily armed. That is why we never delegated to our creature authority to restrict our arms in any fashion whatsoever. And when the federal government attempts to do so, they are usurping powers which they do not possess. The Attorney General goes by court opinions, not the Constitution. There is a vast gulf between the two. We have 200 years of Supreme Court opinions, and Mr. Chairman very kindly shared some of these 200 years of Supreme Court opinions, which have nothing to do with the Constitution. Charles Evans Hughes said over 100 years ago, the Constitution means what the judges say it means. That has been the prevailing dogma ever since, and generations of lawyers have been indoctrinated with this lie. That is why we no longer have a federal government which is held down by the chains of the Constitution. What we have is ruled by five judges on the Supreme Court who claim the power to do whatever they want to us and our country. So today we have two opposites, what the Constitution says and what the Supreme Court says. Well, your oath of office requires you to obey the Constitution, not the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is merely a creature of this Constitution and is completely subject to its terms. My third point, the AG asserts that the that the Supreme Court is the exclusive and final authority on the extent of the powers of the federal government. But our framers knew that Supreme Court judges were as likely as anybody else to be corrupt, usurp powers, and act lawlessly. So Congress, the President, and the states all have checks on the Supreme Court. Hamilton shows in Federalist number 81 that Congress's check on lawless federal judges is to impeach them and remove them from office. The President has his oath of office as a check on the Supreme Court. The President's oath is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. It is not to obey the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was not set up in our Constitution as the superior branch of the federal government. And then there's no need for me to Madison says in his report on the Virginia resolutions that it is a plain principle founded in common sense that the states, as the sovereign parties to the Constitution, are the final authority on whether the federal government has violated the Constitution, and that the states may check all three branches of the federal government, not just, they may check the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative branches by nullifying their acts. If the judicial branch connives with other branches in usurping powers, our Constitution will be destroyed if we do not stop them. This is what James Madison said in his notes on nullification, in his report on the Virginia resolution. I'm sorry I didn't have time to finish. I hope that during questions someone will ask me about the so-called nullification crisis.
Welcome to Truth with J.J. Carrell. I played that because that grabbed me. It just grabbed me when I was prepping for the show, and I was like, holy cow. I never thought of that the way she articulated. I never thought of it in that term. She's brilliant, and she's 100% correct. We have been caught up in this dogma that everything that's happened today has always been. We talk about this on the show quite a bit. We're not the republic our founding fathers instituted. Our founding fathers never in their wildest dreams would allow a judge in Delaware, a judge in Nevada, or Birmingham, Alabama, to supersede the executive branch. It's insane. Our founding fathers knew, as she said in the Federalist Papers, that the judges were as equal to, or probably more, susceptible to fraud and abuse, and they needed checks and balances. Somehow, we've got to this point in America where these men and women in black robes decide everything for us. They're the subservient branch of our government. If you listed the three branches, they're underneath the executive, they're underneath the judicial. They're underneath them. Excuse me, the executive and the legislature. The judicial's under them. The judicial can't do anything to the executive or the legislative. They have no power. They have black robes. And that woman was brilliant in this one, just in anything you get out of that. There's so much to take out of that. But if you just take one thing, the Constitution stands alone. She's holding her Constitution. I'm holding mine. The Constitution stands alone. Stands alone. There isn't the Constitution and the Supreme Court. No, it's just the Constitution. The Supreme Court doesn't override the Constitution. And why are we going off of a bunch of people in black robes when our founders gave us all their documents? Why don't we read their opinions? Don't tell me that, oh, well, we don't need to listen to those guys are so old. Those guys are intellectual giants compared to the intellectual retarded midgets that we have running our country right now. Should I name them out loud? Should I go down that path? Ben Crenshaw, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Meeks, Ghetto Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Sandy Cortez, Bernie Sanders, a socialist. I mean, my God, I could just go on for days. And we want to ignore Hamilton. We want to ignore Adams, Jefferson, Washington. Dear God, people. Those were intellectual giants. They created our country out of nothing. The greatest country in the world. Go to India, 4,000 or 5,000 years old. They don't have running water. People are dying on the streets. They just run them over. China, 4,000 or 5,000 years. What have they done? They just brutalized their people. Slaves. Russia, same thing. Europe just run by beta males. Now the Muslim Africans are destroying, raping their women in real time, and they sit there and they're trying to understand, what do we do with these people that are raping our women, instead of going and killing the people. Our founding fathers created the greatest government, and yet we don't live in that government anymore. We don't. We live in lawlessness. We live in balkanization as far as political views, moral views, cultural, societal norms. Gone. All gone. I'm going to play later on in this episode. I'm going to show how racist our country has become. How racist it's become against whites. How they openly talk about killing whites, and no one says a word about it. We allowed and look, I'm telling you from a guy that's been down on that damn border for 24 years. I know exactly who we let in our country these last 4 years under Joe Biden, and they are freaking savages. You allowed in 30 million people from savage nations. The vast majority, 67%, single adult military-age men from the continent of Africa and Middle East, they're Muslim. You allowed in over 1 million savages from Venezuela that are sweeping our country with crime. You allowed in 500,000 plus voodooists from Haiti. And yet you, the left, and the silent majority of rhinos remain silent when they criticize 59 white South Africans that come into America that share our culture, our societal norms, our religion, and everything in between. Our language, everything. But no, you want to remove 59 white people and bring in 30 million savages. Have you had enough, America? I'm going to play this video of our next guest, and she's been so busy, and thank Ann Vandersteel for coming in today, because she has been on it. When you talk about people that do things, they don't just sit here and talk about it. No, she's out there doing it. I'm going to play a video of her in Massachusetts, and I want to get her take on what she was doing there, why she was there, because it's important. Of what she's the Herculean task of another sick thing that's happening in America, and no one says a word about it because it involves children. Caleb, can you please play this first clip?
To introduce my partner, Ann Vandersteel. She's an incredible journalist. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen her fearless reporting from Panama and down on the border. Ann has never been afraid of the truth. And come on up, Ann.
Ann Vandersteel is also a co-founder of the American Made Foundation, American Made Action. She's got a massive following on social media. Honestly, both her and Maureen, I'm not saying it to stroke their ego. You're looking at two of the finest, bravest, really most brilliant, courageous citizen journalists in the country. So when they're announcing not just Doja, but this new media offensive for an alternative media, this is serious. And I'm telling you, the moment is now ripe. Watch. This is going to spread like wildfire. So please, Cooner Country, let's give Ann a very warm Cooner Country welcome.
Good afternoon, Boston. It is awesome to be here in the birthplace of liberty. You guys rock. I'm just so honored to fly up here today. I love this town. I love your food. I love your people. I don't love your government. It is time that we get into action. American Made Foundation was born because we need to make sure you all understand your rights. How many know the Constitution is a trust indenture, that we are supposed to be the beneficiaries of the Constitution and the government is the trustee? Folks, the fact of the matter is, we're the trustees, and they're taking all the money. They're the beneficiaries. It's been flipped upside down and inside out, and it ends today. And the Rivera family have had those rights stripped the minute they had their doors busted in and held up by gunpoint and their children terrorized by a completely rogue and unconstitutional agency. I challenge anybody to look in the Constitution right now and find any one of these government agencies listed anywhere in our Constitution.
Ann Vanderstiel is absolutely correct. Ann, thank you very much for coming in today. I know you're very busy, so thank you.
JJ, always good to hear you. Wow, what an epic opening you delivered this morning. I'm speechless, but I'm so proud of you because you're saying exactly what needs to be said. And frankly, the government is hijacking the people's powers, right? And what your opening clip was talking about was the people's ability to war. We have a right to self-defense. The Second Amendment is there after the first because we've got to tell people what we don't like. We've got to tell the people that represent us, hey, we want you to do this and we don't like you doing that. And when they're not listening and they start to come after us, we have a right to self-defense. And that federal government, they have stolen our power. They have stolen our constitutional power to defend our nation, our family, our freedom. And like she said, the founders gave us these two very brilliant tools, the Militia Acts and the Letters of Marque and Reprisal, empowering citizens. That means you, me, and everybody in this country to keep and bear arms as part of a locally organized militia to repel invaders and tyrants. And you know, what did we do? For the most part, we sat around and watched the border get invaded and go, well, when is Joe Biden going to send in the cavalry? And he never did. He didn't know he pretended not to know that Article 4, Section 4 existed, that they could send the military and call forth the militia. So again, this allowed Congress to issue basically private war licenses so that American citizens could go after these pirates, these terrorists, and enemies of our republic without building any kind of sort of global empire or unleashing the CIA, as I like to call it. So what happened? The militia gutted. We don't have that anymore. The government replaced it with the National Guard, and we now see, majoritively speaking, and I mean no disrespect, but I've seen National Guard. These people aren't even in shape, let alone are they training regularly enough to defend our borders if we needed them. This is a federalized force that is getting turned against us, and it's, you know, under the president's control. So, you know, we, the armed citizen, we're no longer seen as the backbone of our national defense anymore. It's kind of like we're treated like a threat now to the federal government. So this whole thing has gone upside down, inside out, and backwards, JJ. And what you said this morning is a sobering reminder that we need to take it back.
What were you doing in Massachusetts? Can you tell us? I mean, and this is a big deal because this is, you want to talk about abuse of power. And have you noticed when you're talking to us about why you were there, why does it always involve children? No one ever asked that question, Ann.
Yeah. First of all, let's be very clear. You rattled off a lot of names, and there's many more that are in that line of people that abuse children, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or sexually, physically, whatever. And that truth is coming out. Look, the Epstein files, the reason they haven't released them, there's a reason. There's so many people involved in our own government and worldwide governments. It's a giant RICO case. Let's be clear. I'm not trying to give Pam Bondi a pass here. They could throw us one or two bodies that are, you know, that are behind the Epstein abuse of children and still have a RICO case intact. It's very disturbing to me that we haven't at least gotten that. You know, we're now May 13th, and it's what's going on here. So, but it is that why is it the children are sort of the life force for these people? They believe and they worship. Like you said, they brought in a bunch of voodoo people from Haiti. You know, these are people that are into child sacrifice. They don't see people, and human trafficking is just another way to it's another piece of merchandise to move and make money. They don't see the value of life. They don't believe in God, and children are the most innocent. And for Satan and the people that, you know, worship Satan, you sacrifice the most innocent. And so again, the children are the expendables here, and they're by the hundreds of thousands, I contend millions, that have gone missing in this country. And we, being America, the largest consumers of child sex trafficking and pornography, even admitted by Mike Pompeo in his 2019 Trafficking in Persons report that the Secretary of State's office puts out yearly, foster care homes are the #1 places for these pedophiles to go and liquidate the children from and take them. So the children are extremely valuable. It is a massive funder to their economy. And it's also an insatiable appetite and a sick predilection that they have. So that's really what it's all about. Drugs are secondary to it because children can be sold over and over, where one bag of cocaine or weed is sold one and done. So, the children are used and used and used until they're not useful anymore. And then they're literally sold as parts. And it's just a horrific truth that nobody likes to talk about because it's just so beyond the pale of what people can understand above ground and at cocktail parties. But at the same cocktail parties that you'll see in highfalutin places like Washington, D.C. and Paris, they're the ones that are consuming and they're the ones that are profiting from it, JJ. And they're using the corporatocracy of non-governmental organizations to move it around, just like we learned with Metabiota, Hunter Biden, Black and Veatch, and the money going through Ukraine. It was all done through NGOs and nonprofits. So this is just a sick, sick business, but we've got to keep talking about it.
Do you see the mechanism? I see and we've talked about this. The mechanism to launder money is the NGOs. Are you now coming to the understanding and belief that the mechanism to move children is through CPS?
Absolutely. It's been through CPS this whole time. International Social Services was started in 1924 in Geneva, Switzerland. And ISS, as it is sort of the grandfather to all of these organizations around the world under the color of protecting children. Here in the U.S., it's called CPS. But we also have in the 50 states different three-letter acronyms, DCF, DSS, what have you. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's getting the funding from the federal government, which comes from you and me, again, our tax dollars, through Health and Human Services into Social Security Administration. Remember, HHS has the largest federal budget of any agency, $3 trillion. It's insane. So, or just about $3 trillion. They are funding Social Security Administration, which is funding through Title IV-E and Title IV-B into federal and state grants all the way down into these local organizations. And it's a cottage industry of these non-governmental organizations and for-profit entities, by the way, that are in this leeching and preying on the separation of children from parents. Look, is every family perfect? Are there problems in families? Yes. Are they insurmountable? For the most part, no. They can be through proper guidance and help and care and community support. When you try to stick a federal government operative into your local community in the middle of Kansas because mom's a drunk and dad doesn't have a job and the kids are suffering, it doesn't work. They don't understand the local community problems, but the community does. And that's where the solutions are supposed to come from. But they have been stripped of the ability to do that because we've been programmed to believe that everything comes from the state or the federal government, and that if there's a problem, anybody can anonymously make a tip and say, oh, little Johnny's being neglected because mom's a drunk and dad's out of a job. Little Johnny may be fine. There may be no problems at all, but they're without any evidence at all able to take the kids. And it's because we have birth certificates that actually made your children wards of the state. We're all wards of the state until we're 18 years old. There's a reason why you have, these legal birthdays that make you an adult, because they can take you and profit off you between 0 to 18. And it's this is just a sick system, and we've got to correct it. We didn't used to operate like this when our country was originally founded.
I believe in connecting the dots, and I believe in laying out evidence, and then you just can't turn your head away from it, Ann. And one thing, when I was filming my documentary Trafficked, it was shocking to me that I didn't know that HHS had total control over every CPS in every state. They had control. So we were funneling children by the hundreds of thousands from across the globe into an HHS, who was then pushing them, and a lot of them through foster care, which they were illegally done. They were trafficking. And not only, look, Ann, this isn't my belief. This isn't your belief. This is RFK Jr. He said this last week in Trump's cabinet meeting, where he said, and I'm going to use his words, not mine, HHS became the principal vector, the collaborator that facilitated child sex and child slavery. HHS did it. That's right. The head of HHS admitting, and Ann, I keep coming back to this, Ann, where the hell are the arrests? Those are massive allegations. You can't make allegations like that in the position of authority that you are in, and Trump can't continue to make allegations that Joe Biden committed treason and Mayorkas committed treason, and nobody gets arrested, Ann.
I agree. JJ, my fury is so over the top right now about all of this, because the evidence has already been presented publicly. And we've been doing it for a long time. Since I've been in this business, going back to 2016, I've been talking about CPS cases, and I've shown the money going from Bill Gates through International Social Services into the American Citizen Services Unit, which is an office in every U.S. embassy around the world. And that's the Underground Railroad that we're trafficking these children around the world through U.S. embassies, through the ACS, American Citizen Services Unit, funded primarily by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So when you start to connect, like you said, the dots are there. The NGOs are rising very publicly now. We're starting to put all these pieces together. In fact, I think we pretty much have the pieces that we need to connect the dots with and say, we need to indict these people. Alejandro Mayorkas, the former secretary of DHS, should be in cuffs right now, facing massive charges for human trafficking, child sex trafficking, breaking the federal laws of our Constitution. He should be locked up and the key should be tossed. We should have already had that tribunal and it should be over. The fact he's still walking around is extremely troubling. Again, he left a non-governmental organization that was primarily funded through American tax dollars through the gifts of the United Nations. Again, our country is the largest financial supporter to the UN. The next closest is Germany, and we outspend them by a factor of 17-1. So again, that money, yours, is going in to fund non-governmental organizations like HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which is all over Central and South America, frankly, around the world, moving this weaponized flow of people into our country, specifically children. And Alejandro Mayorkas knows this. He was participative in it, and he gets a job from being on their board into the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security when our borders collapse. And what do we see streaming in the border? With my own eyes, I've seen Middle Eastern men of military age coming into our border with small children in each one of their hands at 3 a.m. And you know who was there to receive them? Customs and Border Protection and Catholic Charities, another NGO. Disgusting. And I know you know what I'm talking about, JJ, because you had 24 years of experience in this.
I have, and what's coming to light rapidly, Ann, is the criminality of Catholic charities tied to the Catholic Church. They tried to separate themselves for years and years and years, but now it's coming out that, and we knew this, that they're tied at the hip. Let me just throw one statistic at you, and this is grossly conservative. From 2009 to the end of 2024 in Joe Biden's term, Catholic charities received $5.2 billion conservatively. During the same time, Ann, the same time period, how much money did the Catholic Church pay out to sexual victims? $5.2 billion. And now there's evidence that the Catholic Church got funded by Joe Biden to pay off, to backfill the coffers so Catholic Church can pay off the sex victims without closing churches and parishes because of bankruptcy laws. It is so grotesquely sick, Ann, and this child sex trafficking is exploded in America. I'm going to play one clip. It's a Tim Tebow was on Sean Ryan's show, and it's only about a minute and a half, and there's a longer one where Tebow is real, and he's like one of the nicest guys maybe in the world, and he's so agitated, he's so frustrated that he can't believe that this is happening and there's no one to help. Just watch this as he explains what just one child is going through right now as you and I are talking right now, Ann.
That's a lot of evil.
Yeah.
A friend of ours that fights in this space 3-4 weeks ago was telling us a 13-year-old girl was being raped while someone would stand there and read the Bible to her. And then they would rotate and somebody else would come in, read the Bible while she would be going through this horrible evil. It was believed that they were doing this so that the worst moment of her life would be associated with God's word. You want to read something?
This forum is entitled Force and has 50 members/contributors. The specific forum has been active for nearly 2 years. Offender 1, what are you into? Offender 2, but anything goes. Offender 3, I'm 60 and a very violent man. No isn't an option. Offender 4, hello all, how are my fellow friends today? Offender 2, I have 20 TB
terabytes.
Oh my gosh. Of video new for 2023 vids available. This is what we're facing.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are hurtful and disturbing about it. One of the things that we're seeing grow bit by bit is offenders that are saying instead of finding their next victim, some of them are saying, let's just grow our next victim.
Ugh.
and in my documentary and in my intro into my show, there's a judge that says they breed children in order to rape them. Mm-hmm. Tebow's not off the mark. He's 100%. He's 100% right. This is how sick our nation has become. And Tim Tebow says something that I have been saying for a long time, but he gets very in the weeds with this, where he says, do you know how many people are assigned to rescue children in America? 7 are sifting through billions of child pornography films. And it is not a coincidence that you have ATF, you have DEA, you have DHS, you have HSI, FBI, you have everything under the sun to control us and take our weapons, our narcotics, whatever it is, but not one agency, not one agency to look for children. And we're not talking about, hey, there's like 100 kids go missing every year. That'd be a tragedy, and we'll find it state and local. We're talking about anywhere from 400 to 800,000 a year.
Right.
Let's say, Ann, that I'm wrong. The government's lying. Let's say it's 400,000, and let's say 90% of the 400,000 that go missing are runaways, and we find them through time, right? They're just high school runaways. And that's 40,000 children disappeared last year. Just disappear, like a spaceship came and took them away, and they're gone.
Right.
And that happens year over year over year. Let's say, Ann, that I'm 99% wrong. The government's 99% wrong. That's 4,000 children go missing every year and never found again, and no one says a damn thing about it. It's insane. It's like I'm living in an alternative universe, Ann.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But again, this goes back to the beginning of the program, right? The government is treating us like we're a threat, okay? Because we want to exercise our rights. They've made militia a dirty word. They've called the Second Amendment. They put it under siege from every known alphabet agency. You just rattled them off. What was it? The ATF, FBI, DHS, etc. These same agencies, including the Institute of Peace for all things, is stockpiling weapons. Why? Because they need to be able to raid your home for political reasons, right? And again, the letters of marque, the ability that if I'm on my own boat out there and I realize that there's a boat full of kids being trafficked, I no longer can go and exercise my right to go and try and stop that crime from happening, particularly if it's in the waters that are not even international. They're our waters. I see something going on. It's all dead and buried. They haven't done anything. And again, Congress is doing nothing. They talk a lot. Oh, we got to save the children, the usual suspects, blah, blah, blah. But again, here's what our job is, JJ. Our job is to tell the American people, you are the government. You have rights to exercise. And if you're threatened and you want to protect yourself, you have every right to do it. And if you want to organize and save these children, go get organized. I'm not saying run around with guns blazing in the air, shooting off fireworks. What I'm talking about is find people that do this for a living, support them, and help them grow their organization, and figure out a role for you to play, whether it's administrative or whether you're kicking doors in. But when we only have 7 people in the government that's trying to find 4,000, 40,000, 400, 800, whatever it is, thousands of children, 7 isn't enough. And this is why they are constantly coming after those of us that are in this business and calling it out and exposing what's going on behind the scenes with government, because we could legally be empowering patriots to fight back. But instead, what happens? We get endless undeclared wars. We get CIA black sites and presidents who are acting like emperors. And it's not working for us anymore, JJ. It's failing the American people.
The people that I interviewed with all the alphabets behind their name for this documentary Trafficked told me off the record, said, you can't show my face, but I'm going to tell you. They said, you're looking at this from the angle as if your government is not involved. They said, you need to understand there's congressmen, senators with an S, and presidents, which shocked me. He said presidents are pedophiles, and he named some pedophiles that they know. You have General Flynn in November 2023 state on a podcast, right now there are senators that have been compromised from having sex with children overseas under the blanket of our flag. No one asked why. And the reason why it never gets done, Ann, I'd like your comment on this. You don't have to agree with me. The reason why nothing is being done is because the pedophiles are in our ruling class.
Correct.
The pedophiles own everything, and the ones that are not pedophiles know who the pedophiles are, have remained silent, therefore they can be blackmailed and coerced. What is your opinion on that statement?
Well, that's 100% true. But here's the truth. The government isn't just asleep at the wheel anymore. It's like you said, these are the pedophiles in control, and they're deliberately hoarding all the power that belongs to we the people. These people in government aren't the be all end all. We are. We the people. You held this up at the beginning, the Constitution, right? This tells us with unequivocally that we the people are the government. The people, quotes, in power, shall I say, in the district of corruption, because they don't have the power. We do. We just tacitly agree to give them the power and assume their authority. Bull dinkies on all of that. We're not going to allow them to continue to neuter the Constitution, disarm we the people, and replace our duty to defend our republic with their stupid, bloated bureaucracy, agencies that have the exact opposite consequence of their intended name, and all the military industrialized corruption. It's not a glitch anymore, folks. We see the glitch in the matrix, and the fact of the matter is we can step out of it and we can take power back. We've got to take the power back, and it's, again, explicit in our Declaration of Independence. I'm not going to listen to these people anymore because my founding fathers told me that when that government isn't serving us, we have a civic duty to alter and abolish it and reclaim the original tools of our liberty. We've got to reestablish our militia. Look up your state constitution. It's all in there. We need to demand the letters of marque so that if we see stuff happening off our shores, we can actually go and do something about them. And we need to remind these dirtbags in D.C. who the real sovereigns are. We, the American people.
Ann Vandersteel, thank you very much. Ann, tell us where you can find you on X at Ann Vandersteel, but tell us about your show on Worldview Tube and say where we could help, if any way, financially, get the word out on what you're doing with CPS.
Great. Thank you so much. You can look us up at AmericanMadeAction.org. I have a website as well, AnnVandersteel.com, which has all my social links. But AmericanMadeAction.org is where the people can take action through filing notices. We have one-click notices on our website, and they get distributed to the right parties in the federal government and Congress that need to know about this. We're trying to defund CPS right now, so please help us do that. You can find that notice on AmericanMadeAction.org under the Take Action button. And of course, as far as supporting us, there's a donate button on there. We have to hire attorneys. We have people taking action with notices, but we also have attorneys that we're using in their criminal system to go after the criminals. So we're going to have the people surrounding the bad guys in black robes and dresses, as you call them out, these judges that have think they've usurped our power. And we're going to have we have about 1,000 attorneys and lawyers and judges that are going to file federal lawsuits with us. And we're going to come after these demons and surround them and take them out. And we're going to defund these agencies that have no business in our lives.
God bless you, Ann Vandersteel. Thank you so much for your courage and your desire and determination. Thank you.
Thanks, JJ.
That's Ann Vandersteel at Ann Vandersteel on X. You want to follow stuff? I have her on my blast, so I follow her feed. Yep, we need to, we're having technical difficulties. There we go. Ann's awesome. I could talk to her for hours. She's ahead of the curve. She is ahead of the curve. Maybe this is the best way to talk about Ann. Is this way. I go and I search out people that I believe are ahead of the times, ahead of the information curve, see things more clearly than I do, can articulate them in a better fashion than I can. That's Ann Vandersteel. Support her cause. She is ahead of the curve. Some of the stuff she says might be just too far in front of you, but you will catch up and you will see that she is exactly what I said, ahead of the curve. I would like you to also go to our sponsors of our show. The first one is Shop Bella Grace. Shop Bella Grace /truth. Can you play this commercial for me, please, Caleb?
As a practitioner with a very large practice, at the very end of the day, I tended to be a little bit worn out. I wasn't covering from taking care of patients. In January, before we pre-launched the company, I was one of the very first people to get the 15-day samples. And right away, I was connected to the Bella Grace Collagen Elixir. Just an overall feeling of wellness, but also a little more energy. I recovered in my workouts, sleeping just more soundly, and then waking up the next day ready to take it on. For me, it was the power of three: the cat's claw, the astaxanthin, and of course, the best, most studied Verisol collagen on the market today.
ShopBellaGrace.com/truth. ShopBellaGrace.com. I'm so outraged at what's happened in the news cycle is no longer 24 hours. I don't think it's 16. I don't think it's 12. I think there's like a 4-hour news cycle. I know that sounds crazy, but just go back in the last week, and think about the news cycle. What's happened 2 months ago would still be running today. We would still be talking about it. HHS Secretary says HHS former under Javier Becerra was trafficking children, sex trafficking and slavery, and silence. Donald Trump says there's treason. They got to get into it. FBI saying there's senators we're going to get in for deep state insider trading. Silence. Trump, pharmaceuticals going to get down by 80%. 4 hours. Spun out. ICE is taken over by radicals. We've arrested congressmen and mayors. Gone out of the cycle. The world is changing so fast. The world is changing so fast. And I don't know if it's all for the good. Something's happening in the world that I can't truly articulate right now, and I'm struggling to find the right words and trying to find the right information. But in my gut, something is happening, and I don't think it's good. I think it's good in the way that we're bringing evil to light, and we're going to put it all on a platter. Now, I'm not talking about the people. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to look at it. People are going to turn away because they can't digest it. They don't have the intestinal fortitude, and they like to watch their TV, eat their Cheetos, and get fat and do whatever. I get that. But there's enough of us that are going to see the evil, and we're not going to have a choice. No one's going to say to men like me and my people in my audience and the men that I call my friends and brothers, we're going to see the evil as it is, and it's going to be so grotesque, it's going to be so overwhelming that there's no choice going to be given to us. It's not going to be like, JJ, you can sit this one out. No, it's going to be like, get my gun, get my vest, get my old duty belt on. Here we go. Could I be wrong? Maybe. I'm looking at things spiraling. What do you think would happen if I showed you what Tim Tebow was saying? Some 13-year-old girl getting sexually trained while somebody's reading scripture and she's screaming. You would lose your mind. You would lose your mind. What if I told you that I have 1 million of those videos? 10 million of those videos. I have a subset of 2 million of just vaginal and anal intercourse with 3-year-olds. And I put it all out there for everybody to see. And here are all of your elites, from religious elites, media, entertainment, politics, sports, education, healthcare. That's what I'm talking about. And then over here, I have the list of people that stole trillions of dollars from us and made our country in debt and poor. We live in a lawless society. And I'm going to give you an example of lawlessness in just 1 second. And it's caused it's caused. And I'm going, and I don't care how this sounds to my ICE brothers and my Border Patrol and all my police and sheriffs. I don't care how this sounds. And I'm not blaming them. Because we do not act in the fashion where crimes are committed and we arrest the people on the spot. When you do not do that to criminals, that emboldens them. It's called the broken window theory. And Rudy Giuliani used to say it. If there's a broken window in the neighborhood and no one does anything about it, then everybody begins to accept that it's normal. Then their front porch is hanging off the hinges. Well, that's normal. Well, I can sell drugs on this corner. Nobody cares about the buildings. And then it spirals. And lawlessness comes. Now I got prostitution. Now I have rape. Now I have murders. Drug deals gone bad. Now I have a community in chaos. All because of a broken window. We're going to look at, which I showed yesterday, the fat, obese congresswoman not being arrested for physically assaulting a federal agent, which is a felony. And because nothing was done to her, and because nothing was done to all the rest of the politicians, the grandma and everything else was not arrested, because there was not someone like me in supervision in that facility, because I would have been in the middle calling my guys out, her, him, her, hook them up right now, hook them up. And I would have already given instructions. If someone touches you, you are going to slam them to the ground and you are going to cuff them. Why? Number one, it's the right lawful thing that must be done. Two, if you do not, they will see that kindness, if you will, as a weakness, and they will attack harder, faster, with more power, and they'll put you and me and other law enforcement officers in horrible positions. Here's Exhibit A of what did not happen correctly yesterday. Now they're having to deal with it exponentially more now. Play this, Caleb, please.
I'm not touching it.
Sorry. Get off the car! What are you doing? Get off the car! Get off the car! Get off the car! Get off the car! She didn't do anything! What are you doing? Stay over here. Back up! Get off the car! Get off the car! Get off the car! Guys, excuse me. Let me get his phone. Get my phone. Get my phone. You guys don't move out of the way. No! Pay attention. Look. Yo, miss. He's not getting his phone. No. Back up! Back up! I can't, hold on, excuse me. Sorry. I can't record, but we just need y'all to back up. Right here, grab my, all right.
That's going to be a training video of what not to do. It's going to be a training video across America. This is what training officers do. They will go through and scour videos, and they will break them down, and we will go into training in firearms, defensive tactics training every quarter, and they will show us a video or two and say, this quarter we're going to talk about not knowing your responsibility. Let me show you just two things, or talk about two things. Did you see the giant wildebeest with purple hair and the black ICE officer or Newark PD officer? I can't remember which one for her markings. Was having to put her forearm up and continually push this person back, push her back. She's within striking distance of not only her, but your partners that are trying to handcuff someone, and she's ramming you. Why is she not under arrest? Why isn't that wildebeest thrown to the ground, having to take both of your handcuffs because she's so obese that her arms will not bend to her back, so you have to use two sets of handcuffs to get it done? Why is she not under arrest? Then the guy's getting taken away, and then his wife or girlfriend is running behind him, reaching inside of his pocket. What if he had a gun? Black Lives Matter, Ferguson effect, defund the police. We are witnessing all of the ills of that. Officers that will not do their job because they're scared to death, don't know their job, they're afraid and impotent. Where's the sergeants? Where's the lieutenants directing this chaos? Telling his officers, that woman, arrest her. That man, arrest him right now. Assault. And because they don't, you're going to have more things at this ICE facility. I'm passionate about this because without law and order, you will have chaos in the streets. And when you have chaos, you have no freedom, you have no opportunities, because we are in fight or flight. Before I go into this next segment, and people are not going to want to hear it, and I don't really care, because I'm just going to tell you. You come to see my show, I'm just going to tell you the truth. Not what I feel or what I believe or what I want to have happen. I'm just going to tell you the truth. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like me. I don't really care. I'm just going to tell you what is happening in America. And as I see all this chaos, I keep telling myself in the back of my mind, are you prepared, JJ? Are you prepared? Do you now have enough money? Do you have enough cash? Do you have a generator? Your flashlights work? Are your guns in order? Do you have enough ammunition? Do you have a sat phone? Do you have Faraday packs? Does all your family have bulletproof backpacks? Yeah, I think like this. And I think if you don't, I think that you're mistaken. I really do. I think that you're mistaken. And you're going to pay a significant price. And we have a partner on this show called sat123.com that has all those products I just mentioned. Just go to their website, sat123.com/JJ, or call the number on the screen. But you must be prepared. There are 660,000 law enforcement officers in America, and that number dwindles every day. There's 350 million people in America. 660,000 of those officers, the vast majority are in major metropolitan areas. So you take away New York, LA, San Francisco, Miami, and you strip those departments away. You're looking at maybe at 450. And then you do days off, court, shift work. You may have tens of thousands of officers patrolling right now. Not hundreds of thousands, not millions, tens of thousands. We saw what happened in Portugal. We saw what we see, and we know Chinese are attacking our infrastructure. Don't be that guy or girl that's trying to get a hold of your family. You can't. Sat123.com/JJ. This is part that no one wants to talk about, is the blatant acceptance of racism against white people. I'm going to talk about this in detail tomorrow because it has to be discussed. It just has to. 59 South African whites, Christian whites, were brought in yesterday. Beautiful families, waving American flags. They weren't bum rushing our border. They weren't running over the National Guard. No. They came in legally through a process. And every single one of CNN, MSNBC, all those people hate them because they're white. Play this clip for me, Caleb.
So this started back in January. South Africa enacted the Expropriation Act, which sought to undo the legacy of apartheid by redistributing land. In South Africa today, 3 decades after racial segregation officially ended in that country, black South Africans, who comprise more than 80% of the population, own about 4% of privately held land. Our panel is back. Ashley, Allison, let me go to you on this one. This was what the Trump executive order on realigning the United States refugee admissions program said on January 20th. This was one of the first things that the president signed when he got into office. The United States lacks the ability to absorb large numbers of migrants, and in particular refugees, into its communities in a manner that does not compromise the availability of resources for Americans, that protects their safety and security, and that ensures the appropriate assimilation of refugees. So what's the difference between the refugees that they're talking about here and those refugees?
I could guess. I mean, I think everyone...
They're white.
They're white. Thank you. Look, if that is how you feel, fine, then hold the line. But there are people all over the world, even people in this country right now, who are who have sought asylum, who are going through the process of asylum seeking, and have been detained by ICE and are being deported.
Caleb, you can go ahead and stop this one.
There's also a genocide happening in the Congo right now that I don't see any...
That's white people. We don't want white people. No. We don't want Christian white people. Why would we want Christian white people that speak English? Why would anyone want that in America? No. Let's bring in 30 million savages. And you don't like my term savages? I don't care, because I was on the border and you weren't. And they're savages. The vast majority are illiterate in their own language. They don't share our culture and societal norms. They don't share our language. They don't share our religion and our beliefs. No, but we want all of them. 30 million of them. Let's listen to another stone cold racist. I think this is Nicole Wallace. What a piece of garbage from MSNBC. Let's listen to some more white hatred.
Trump has virtually halted refugee admission in America for people fleeing war and famine in places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Back with Rick, Mark, and Eddie. Rick Stengel.
Yes, it's so deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. They're not directly responsible for it, but it was a system that actually moved black people off of the arable land. So they inherited the land that the black people had to give up. It was called forced removal. It was something called a Bantustan policy, where they moved black people out of the cities and farmlands into these remote areas with non-arable land. I mean, it was just one of the most worst processes ever. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing white supremacist movements around the world, that it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy.
Yeah, it's white people. We're the problem. Do you know I have this conversation with my son at least once a week, like I'm a black sharecropper in the 50s, telling my son, prepare yourself, son. The world hates you because of your skin color. It's wrong then that a black father had to talk to his son that way, and it's wrong that I have to do it today. There is raging violence against whites in America. It is repulsive. And there are whites that are going to sit there and do nothing because they're cowards. I will not apologize for the skin color God gave me, nor would I ever ask anyone to do the same. But I will stand up for myself and my family. America, you have got to take your country back. You have got to make America great again. Now.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.